Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today PMDG has just announced the next update for Microsoft Flight Simulator Boeing 737. So the update is supposed to go into beta testing over the weekend and then, if everything goes well, hopefully be released at some point mid next week. And while work on the systems and updating some of the systems is continuing in the background, this update is mainly going to focus on some of the visual aspects, mostly, or rather most notably, focusing on some of those, call them hitchy, granular, or low frame rate animations, such as, for example, the control column in the flight deck or the thrust levers. And they have made some really good progress there. I'm currently really looking forward to get my hands on that beta version that should hopefully arrive tomorrow on Sunday. And while you will understand that I'm under NDA and therefore not allowed to tell you how that testing is going to go, I'm confident that based on the past testing, these things are usually handled really well by PMDG, and therefore I don't expect too much of a hassle getting it out as scheduled mid next week. So I know that quite some of you have complained about the trim wheel looking itchy, and PMDG has been working on it for quite a while during the actual development and got some actual good results. And then accidentally reverted that section of the code back to the original code of the PMDG 737 NGX for Microsoft Flight Simulator X in 2010, and nobody noticed. Now, my personal speculation as to why nobody noticed, most certainly why I didn't notice, is that we didn't have the trim sound for such a long time in the beta, so that's why I always took the trim wheel as work in progress as well. Alright, yeah, the update's supposed to go into testing at some point in the weekend, and release is hopefully anticipated next week. So going over to the next section, that's the entry of the 737 into the marketplace. That has actually been moved backwards a little bit because PMDG wants to do a couple more updates, and most importantly, there is an incompatibility between the 737 and those game-passed twist grip dual rudder axis controllers like you have on the standard Xbox controllers, and that needs some more attention because it is currently not working with the 737 yet. So that's scheduled to be done after the current update, so after the one that's going to go into testing on the weekend. The one thereafter is going to focus on that one, and hopefully thereafter we're going to see some progress moving it into the Microsoft Flight Simulator marketplace. Now, the biggest point, and I really have to emphasize, the biggest point here is the upcoming 737-600 release. I know that many of you are like, but I don't want a 600. Yes, but the 600 also serves as a test platform for some new systems updates. And most importantly, that is the new lateral flight path model and flight director model. Many of you will remember it from the 747's previews for P3D, and actually it's now making its way into the 737 with the 600, and it's going to be tested on the 600 platform, and then on the day of the 600 release it will also be delivered to the 700 with a free update. So obviously, if you don't want the 600, nonetheless you will look forward to the 600 release, because at the same point the 700 will receive the update with a new lateral flight path modeling. Now, lateral flight path modeling, here we go already, basically means that the magenta line of the route that's in the FMC is going to be redone, and the lateral flight director indications are also going to be remodeled to match the real airplane more accurately. And that's going to bring you several strong improvements. First of all, the airplane is finally going to be able to draw proper curves and stop that route overshooting that you see happening so often at the moment. However, be aware that the real airplane does also overshoot some routes if the speed is improper. You're going to see this mostly on some tight turning departures without a speed restriction applied to them. So what we do in the real 737 when you get those is to add a speed restriction on the waypoint that's at the end of that first turn until the magenta line is then drawn properly, because that indicates that the airplane is going to be able to try and fly it accurately. So you will have to do the same thing with a PMDG once this new update is out. And I have not yet seen the latest version of it as implemented in the 737, but the developer has shown me a couple of a preview where we compared some photos I took on the real airplane with the same performance data as entered on the PMDG module, and believe it or not, it actually had the same bugs that the real 737 had. So that is something that got me thrilled, because having the same bugs as the real one means that your code is so similar to the real one, and therefore I'm expecting a really good result. As said, don't expect a 100% proper flight path drawing, because the real airplane isn't doing it either 100% of the time. But you can expect this to be very, very close to the real airplane. Now that's an update which is hugely overdue in my personal opinion. It should have been done like years ago, but the last PMDG routing logic is actually going back like 20 years or so. And with the new one, at least with the couple of previews I have seen from the developer, as said, internal stuff that I can unfortunately not share with you, but some really exciting stuff there, and I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on that and creating some videos for you showcasing it as well, maybe even including a couple of comparisons with a real airplane. I'm hoping I'll be able to do something like that, but of course we'll have to wait for the non-disclosure agreement to be lifted here to actually show you those previews. Now, initially it's been said that the new 737 models are going to release within a 6-week time frame after one another, and that will probably have to be shifted a little bit backwards with a 600 in order to make sure that the new flight path modeling can actually be tested properly. In the end, I'm sure that you all are going to agree with me that there is no sense releasing something half-finished that you are just going to have issues with, but we'll have to make sure that this is actually working properly. And that's again where the beta team and the technical team is coming into play, where we have to do the best in order to make sure that this is properly thoroughly tested. Now, the last thing of today's update is some news on the new PMDG EFB, and work is continuing there. This week they are focusing on integrating the Navigraph charts and refining SimBrief functionality. And while it's still a little bit too early to predict when exactly it's going to make its way into the 737 release cycle, the team is working very hardly on it, and I can assure you that this is going to be an amazing EFB. We are finally no longer working on the old Boeing EFB model that you saw in the PMDG product ranges, but this is actually going to be based on a tablet as we see it in use in the vast majority of airlines, especially across the 737 range. There have only been very little EFBs of the Boeing type that we saw in the NGX release in P3D. But most airlines are using some sort of a tablet, be it a Windows tablet or an iPad, and therefore I'm really looking forward to see what PMDG can come up with over here. Especially, we have to keep that in mind, because using a custom tablet design, while including all the real-life layouts of those apps like the Performance Calculator app or the Charts apps, even though I don't know if the chart app layout is going to be limited by Navigraph, I don't know exactly how that's working and what developers can or cannot do there. But I've seen that most of the custom EFBs we've seen in MSFS, also in P3D earlier on, have usually been limited to a layout that was very similar to the default Navigraph layout. I hope PMDG can do something about that, but we'll come back to that later on. Anyway, overall, the tablet is making really good progress, and while it's still unclear when it's going to be included, I hope that it's not too far off. Now, I don't want to spoil you, but it's not going to be in the 600 release, at least not as far as I'm aware, but maybe for the 800 or for the 900 later on. By the way, I told you that the 600 release plan is being shifted backwards a little bit to allow for the testing of the new LNAV module, but the original plan of a model every 6 weeks still stands, and the delay in the 600 is not going to delay the development cycles of the upcoming 800 or 900. So there will probably be some less weeks in between the 600 and 800 release than if it's taking longer for the 600 to come out. Anyway, I hope you have found this interesting. I'm looking forward to see you all in the virtual skies in the weekend, and you can look forward to a couple more videos from myself over the weekend as well. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you found this interesting, and well, stay healthy, have a good weekend, and I'm looking forward to see you all in the virtual skies. Thank you.